This is the story of Jacob. God promised Abraham that he would be the father of a great family. But Abraham and Sarah had only one son, Isaac. Isaac married Rebekah, and for a long time they had no children, until, with God's help, they had two boys, Esau and Jacob. Esau and Jacob were twins, but they were not like each other. Esau was big, Jacob was small. Esau had red hair, and Jacob had dark hair. Esau was hairy, and Jacob had smooth skin. Esau liked to hunt, and Jacob stayed by the tent to watch the sheep. Esau was born first, so he was the one who was supposed to have his father's things when he died. Isaac loved Esau best, but Rebekah loved Jacob best. Jacob thought it was not fair that Esau was treated special because he was the oldest. They had been born on the same day. Once, when Esau came home from hunting, he was very hungry. Jacob had made some soup. Esau asked his brother for some. "I'll give it to you," said Jacob, "if you will agree that I can have father's things when he dies." Esau didn't even think about it. "What use are father's things when I'm so hungry?" He took the soup. Now there was an agreement between the brothers that Jacob would be like the oldest son. Isaac was old. He couldn't see. He asked Esau to go hunting and make the stew he liked best. Then Isaac would bless him. Rebekah overheard this. She thought Jacob should get the blessing. So she and Jacob made Isaac special stew from a lamb instead of a wild animal. They put animal skins on Jacob's arms so he would seem hairy and dressed him up like Esau. Jacob went to his father with the stew. Isaac believed that Jacob was Esau, and he laid his hands on him and blessed him. When Esau returned with stew for his father, he discovered that Isaac had been tricked into giving away the blessing that should have been his. He was angry and threatened to kill Jacob. Rebekah asked Isaac to send Jacob away to her family to find a wife. Isaac agreed. Jacob set off quickly through the desert towards Haran, where his mother's family lived. One night, he found a rock and made it his pillow. While he slept, he dreamt of a great ladder stretching all the way into heaven. There were angels climbing up and down the ladder, and God seemed to be above and around and beside the place. A voice said, "I am the God of Abraham and Isaac. I will give you this land on which you lie to you and to your descendants. Through them all the world will be blessed. I am with you, and I will bring you back to this land." When Jacob awoke, he knew he had heard God in his dream. He poured oil on the stone so that he would always remember what God had said, and named the place Bethel, the house of God. Jacob travelled on and came to a well where the shepherds watered their flocks. There was a beautiful young woman there with her father's sheep. Jacob went over and rolled the stone away from the mouth of the well and watered the sheep. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and began to weep aloud. He had told Rachel that he was a relative of her father and a son of Rebekah, so she ran and told her father. Jacob wanted to make Rachel his wife, so he offered to work for her father Laban for 7 years in exchange for his permission to marry Rachel. After 7 years, the wedding took place. But in the morning, Jacob realized he had been tricked and that he was married to Leah, Rachel's sister. Father Laban told Jacob that he could marry Rachel in a week's time if he worked for another 7 years. He did that and was married to Rachel. Jacob worked for his uncle for a total of 21 years. During that time, God blessed Jacob and his work, and Laban's flocks grew in number. Then God came close to Jacob and told him it was time to return home. Jacob packed up all that he had and began the journey home with his family. Jacob was afraid to meet his brother again. Esau had threatened to kill him and was coming to meet him with 400 men. Jacob prayed to God and sent presents to Esau. That night he went apart from his family to pray. A strange thing happened. Someone struggled with him all night. The stranger touched Jacob's thigh and his hip came out of joint. But Jacob held on until morning. The stranger said, "Let me go." But Jacob knew that this was no ordinary person. He refused to let him go until the stranger had given him a blessing. The stranger said, "Your name will no longer be Jacob. You will be called Israel, for you have struggled with God and with people and have prevailed." And he blessed him. So Jacob called the place Peniel, which means the face of God, because he knew he had been struggling with God. Jacob caught up with his family, limping because of his injury. Then he went out to front of them to meet Esau. He bowed down to the ground as Esau came near. Then his brother ran to him and put his arms around him. Finally, old Isaac died, and his sons Esau and Jacob buried him. Jacob, or Israel as he was now called, had 12 sons. The sons of Leah were Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. The sons of Rachel were Joseph and Benjamin. The sons of Rachel's maidservant Bilhah were Dan and Naphtali. The sons of Leah's maidservant Zilpah were Gad and Asher. These were the sons of Jacob who were born to him in Paddan Aram. When Jacob died, he was buried in the same cave as Abraham and his wife Sarah, Isaac and his wife Rebekah, and with his own wife Leah.